You're listening to the Visible Expert Podcast, where we share stories, research, and actionable insights to help B2B marketers and practitioners drive extraordinary growth in their professional lives. All right, thanks for joining the Visible Expert Podcast. I'm John Tyreman.
And I'm Kelly Waffle.
And today our show is we really want to share our stories and introduce ourselves, and we're going to be your co-hosts and guide on your journey to visible expertise.
Yeah, so you're going to be trapped in the car or on the train or whatever with us for probably 30 minutes. So we want to make sure you actually like who we are and it's worth your time listening to us.
And it's, trapped in the car, it's something that I can totally relate to. I've got a 90-minute plus commute every morning driving here to the Hinge office right outside of Washington, D.C. So, and I listen to many, many podcasts. So
I was going to say, if anyone knows podcasts, it's John Tyreman.
Yeah, there's a bunch of really good ones out there that, I inspired by, the Marketing School podcast is great. The B2B Growth Show, I think, is excellent. So there's a bunch of really good ones out there that I encourage you to listen to if you haven't already.
So, John, let's give the audience a little bit of background on who you are. You head up a lot of the research here at Hinge, so why don't you go into a little bit more detail about who John Tyreman is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I, like Kelly, like you said, I head up the research division here at Hinge Marketing, and I've been at Hinge for over 5 years now. And I don't know if you've read the book Outliers, but there's a section in that book that focuses on the Beatles, and they ended up playing at a strip club in Germany. And they played there, and they accumulated up to 10,000 hours of practicing and performing. And that's how the Beatles were so in tune and in sync with each other while they played. Well, if you project a 40-hour work week out over 5 years, one could say that I'm a sort of master of Hinge in a sense. And I've doing the research, and what that's been able to do is really help me kind of understand the professional services buyers and firms in the industry. So we put out an annual high growth study. We do many other breakout studies on employer branding, on referrals specifically. We do a kind of a biannual study with the Association of Accounting Marketers on marketing budget benchmarks for accounting firms.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of really good data that we publish. So
John, going back to your story, which Beatle persona would you be?
Well, I'm a drummer at heart, so I resonate with Ringo, and it's funny. Music is a big part of my life. When I was 10 years old, my neighbor got an electric guitar, and we lived out in the woods, so there was nothing really to do. So we said,
"Are you sure it wasn't a banjo?"
Yeah. Right. Well, no, as a kid, I wasn't really into bluegrass. I wanted to be a rock star, right? So we decided to form a band and play some music and record original music and share it with our friends. But little did I know that what I was doing was content marketing. And so, over the time, I went to school at first to be an engineer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And following in my father's footsteps, he was an engineer. My grandfather was an engineer. So it just wasn't for me. I was really fascinated with promoting. Marketing was really my calling. So I switched my majors my freshman year in college and never looked back. And here I am doing content marketing 20 years later, and it's all good.
That's great.
Yeah.
See, I've learned something about you today.
Well, it's that's what this podcast is for, right? Sharing our stories. Well, and Kelly, I don't know a lot of your story. Can you tell us kind of where you started from and how you got to this point?
I was born in a small log cabin outside of Springfield, Illinois. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, that's Abraham Lincoln.
Exactly.
Right?
That's all that could come to mind right away. I'm actually a bit of an old timer in this space, unlike John. I've been around the block a few times. I would probably say, as far as B2B marketing goes, uh, I've been a practitioner or a manager of teams for about 18 to 20 years. I think what makes me stand out a little bit from some of the other folks out there is that I've had the opportunity to work as a creative director at different agencies. I've worked at marketing consulting firms. I ran my own marketing consulting firm for a while. I've also been on the client side, leading or building out marketing teams. And I've also been on the vendor side. So it gives me four different perspectives that I bring to the table all the time, as marketers are out there day to day. So I got to say that marketing in today's world has got to be one of the most challenging positions out there. It's constantly changing. There's so much new technology coming out there. There's a big transition between traditional marketing and digital marketing, and what is the mix that's right for your organization? How do you incorporate technology in that? If you look at Scott Brinker's super graphic now on marketing technology, he's got over 7,000 solutions or vendors on his chart. So that can be overwhelming for any CMO, VP of marketing, director of marketing, to go in, even in the subcategories, to figure out which products they should be using. So I tend to work with a lot of our clients, helping them understand that and helping them kind of get the right balance of using traditional marketing and digital marketing. But the point that I always like to make to people is that it's really, not just about the technology. That's just really a tool or a means to an end. But you really have to focus a lot on the processes that are not in place and making sure that they are in place, having the right skill sets in place. So a lot of people see the shiny object, they want to go out and get it. And then once they go out and they buy that platform, they realize they don't have the right skills in-house to actually, operate it and make it work and help grow the company. And then, the programs that you're running. So a lot of people get intimidated by some of these platforms. And so, I've seen people go out and buy a marketing automation platform, and it's taken them a year to get that first campaign out the door.
That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, because they're so intimidated to push that button to send out that campaign that they're going to make a mistake and everything else. So there are some really robust technologies out there on the market, but you really need to put in the strategy and the time to figure them out, figure out where they fit into your organization, and what is your organization going to look like 2, 3, 4 years from now, leveraging that marketing technology stack.
So I brought up Scott's the marketing technology landscape, the Martech 5000 graphic that you alluded to. This is really overwhelming.
Yeah, so like I said, the current version he's got has actually 7,040 vendors on it.
Oh yeah, this is from April 2018 that I'm looking at. Wow. Okay, so it's really the Martech 7000 now. That's insane. Yeah, all those, and I've experienced that too, and with technology and the allure of automation, and obviously that's how marketing folks will sell that internally as look at all this automation that you can get. But I think where a lot of organizations kind of drop the ball is not really doing their homework or understanding the effort needed to implement all that stuff.
Yeah, so again, talking about marketing automation, I started out as a practitioner back in the early days, and had the opportunity to work on very sophisticated implementations around Eloqua and Marketo, to the point that I've actually won awards with both of those organizations. But I also had the chance to work for Marketo kind of as an evangelist. And so it was very interesting from the vendor perspective to see a lot of the issues that practitioners, well-meaning practitioners were running into as they tried to implement the technology without having those other components of the overall infrastructure in place.
Well, yeah, I mean, the marketing technology is really just a tool to execute. It's not going to get the strategy right. It's not going to get the creative elements of your marketing right. That's just a facilitator for delivering that.
Right. But again, in the bigger picture, going beyond marketing technology, where a lot of people start with, or our CRM system like Salesforce, people start getting a couple of these platforms for very specific uses, and then they realize, oh, maybe I need to integrate those together or connect those together, and then that leads to quite a long journey around building out your MarTech stack and how you do that. And again, it can be quite confusing for the audience out there as a lot of vendors are pushing best of class or best in breed endpoint solutions. Others are trying to promote more of a cloud suite or an all-in-one platform. So, what road do you go down? And now we're starting to see even the evolution of kind of more of a open ecosystem where you've got a platform where you've got different APIs that folks can use and build out their applications and tie it into the platform. So it's a lot for people to digest. And in a recent blog that I just wrote, I just come out and say, most marketers out there are not technologists. They did not come up through the ranks to be technologists. And again, now a lot of this is being thrown on them, and it's a lot to digest. So that's kind of why we're doing this podcast, and we do our blogs and everything else, is try to help people navigate those waters on a daily basis.
Well, and just recently, Kelly, I've learned a lot from you, and I think you bring a great perspective. You had the creative director background. You've got the technology background. You've ran your own practice. You've ran your own business. So, I mean, I think all of those together really, for me personally, I think it's really helped me kind of grow in my own role. So, I'm really excited for not only this podcast, but working closely with you in the future.
I appreciate that, John. And again, I'm just at a point in my career where I just love to share information. I've been in the trenches. I've had to roll up my sleeves. I've made a lot of mistakes. And, if I can point those out and share with people so that they don't have to go through a lot of that stuff, but they can actually get to the point where they're optimizing their efforts a little bit quicker, that kind of makes my day.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been in the field for less than a decade, and I've made plenty of mistakes myself as well. So I mean, there's for me at least, that's how I learn is make these mistakes, and I know that, man, that was painful. I don't want to ever have to go through that again.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would bring up is really the research angle. So this is something I've seen over the last few years is a lot of people get very comfortable in their industry or their space, and they think that they know all the answers. And, you really need to kind of put your ego aside and look at what's best for your organization. And I would highly recommend, if you're out there trying to rebrand yourself or actually, improve your website or things like that, that you start out with research, because I can't tell you how many times I've engaged with clients and they're dragging their feet to do the research, but then when the research comes back, I mean, they're like astounded of who their competitors really are or who their competitors are perceived to be. What is their differentiation? So I talked, a lot of my background was in cybersecurity, and, I talked to a lot of folks in that community. And I got to tell you, if you take 3, 4, 5 different companies in cybersecurity and ask them what makes them stand apart, they will all tell you the same thing. I mean, it will come back with 5 of the same answers. So, organizations have got to spend more time differentiating themselves if they want to grow out there, and your research, definitely shows that.
Well, yeah, that's one of the core services that we offer to our clients is doing brand studies, and over the years I've studied hundreds of professional services brands, thousands of professional services buyers. I've personally reviewed their perspectives, and it's amazing how just a few anecdotal experiences paint a picture in our clients' minds, but then when they look at the results of the research in aggregate and look at the holistic picture, some of those concerns are really just molehills that are being seen as mountains. And you're right. It's imperative to do that research and to get a fundamental understanding of how your audience views you, just in total. Don't just focus on those one-off experiences.
Yeah, and again, there's so many nuances and ways that you can set yourself apart from the competition, or help yourself grow. I'm actually renewing a bunch of the case stories that we have here at Hinge, and one of them that I did recently was around this architectural and engineering firm, and we actually went in and rebranded them, logo and everything else, corporate colors. And one of the corporate colors we selected was this bright green. And in doing the story, one of the VPs over there said he was just adamant against that color because it reminded him of his mother's pea soup. So he was not going to have that color as part of the organization. But then the research came out, and it showed that green had a lot of meaning from an environmental point of view and other ways that he hadn't considered. And so we talked to him recently, and he's like, "You're not going to believe this, but I really embrace that color now because of the research that Hinge did, and I even have one wall in my office that's in that color. That's how much I've embraced it." But
Wow.
that's just the power of the research. Again, you have to put your own personal feelings and beliefs and ego, put those aside or put them in check, and let the market do the talking for you.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said, Kelly. I think the research is really that foundation on which you can build not only your brand but an effective marketing campaign as well. And that's a lot of what we find too, is that when you do research on your target audience, not only do you get insights on what your differentiators are, but you also get insights on what are those challenges that are facing your buyers. And then from there, those are the issues that you should focus on in creating content like webinars and blog posts and white papers, to help them address those challenges. And that's really the core of our business is helping our clients solve their buyers' challenges. And I mean, that's just the focus of marketing in general.
Yeah, and I really see that as being one of the purposes of this podcast, is really take a lot of the collective expertise that we know about or that we have, and being able to share that with our audience in kind of a storyteller fashion, to make it a little bit more conversational, more approachable, more anecdotal in its approach. So, I know a lot of people, I love history, and I know a lot of people that told me, "Oh, history's so boring, I couldn't get into it, in high school and college. Oh, those textbooks were so droll," and things like that. But now I talk to these folks, guys, that I went to college with and stuff, and they tell me, all these historical facts that they've learned because they're watching things like the History Channel.
Mm-hmm.
And it all just has to do with the way that things are packaged.
Yep.
And I think that's what this podcast does, is it really takes you on a 30-minute journey so that you're actually learning, but it's in a very enjoyable way, and you're actually learning how other visible experts have done it. And again, some of the challenges, some of the rewards, and hopefully each one is a different, unique, and interesting story that will be compelling to you?
Yeah, we wrote a book. Hinge wrote a book a few years ago called The Visible Expert, and I was really heavily involved in the research that supported that book, and we went out and interviewed a bunch of visible experts in the marketplace. Anywhere from Joe Polizzi down to some lesser known experts that are more practitioners or just subject matter experts within their organization. And we really found that there's 5 levels of visible expertise. And you've got your resident experts, your local heroes, you've got your rising stars, and then all the way up to the global experts, the Seth Godins of the world, where so there's a range of different levels, and as you start on your journey, there's different things that you can do at each one of those levels to build your brand. And that's what's really exciting about this podcast, I think, is that we really look at different experts from all walks of life.
Yeah, no, and again, I think the whole concept of branding, personal branding, and organizational branding, it's not just satisfying for you, it's satisfying for the organization. When you get your branding to a certain point, you're actually influencing a lot of folks and helping them make business decisions that help them and help your organization as well. So there are a lot of key aspects to becoming a visible expert once you start getting into those higher levels.
Yeah, well said. And then there's a concept that some marketers might be familiar with, but the halo effect. And if you build your personal brand, it can be supported by your organization and your organization's brand, and vice versa too. So if you hire a visible expert to come onto your team, they bring a certain level of clout and reputation and visibility that can have a positive effect on your organization as well. So there's many different benefits to becoming a visible expert and to be associated with visible experts, and that's one of the big things that we found in our research that impacts the professional services and the B2B market in general.
Yeah, and again, I just am fascinated by biographies in general, and I just see this as a great opportunity for me to learn from a variety of different people, not only in B2B marketing, but business and leadership, and in specific vertical industries. And I just love coming into each day learning something new, and I think that these podcasts will certainly do it for everyone.
Yeah, so you said you're a history buff. So what's your favorite point in history?
World War II.
World War II history? Yeah. For me, I love the Revolutionary War.
Oh, really?
That's just so fascinating to me.
Wow.
Being in Virginia, and there's a lot of Civil War history, but there's just something about that Revolutionary War and just breaking free and freedom and independence that really resonates with me.
I don't know. The World War II stuff just really gets to me. Again, last weekend I was flipping the channels, and the movie Patton came on with George C. Scott, and I was going to go out and do a bunch of landscaping and stuff, and I literally put that aside to watch that movie, which is quite long, but I just loved it so much, and all the strategy, and again the characters in it and everything else. I mean, if you compare and contrast the roles of George Patton to Omar Bradley. They were both 3-star and 4-star generals, but the way that they managed and developed strategy and all that were very different. Both approaches worked great for the United States, but it's just interesting studying contrast and human behavior.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and then those lessons can still be applied to business as well, all those different strategies.
Absolutely. Leadership is critical. Too many organizations are so busy trying to execute and deliver that they don't step back and really spend enough time on strategy and leadership and motivation and things like that.
I think that's so true. And so many things get kind of lost in the cracks, and we're so focused on the day to day and what's happening right in front of us that sometimes we just fail to step back and look at the big picture.
Yeah, and again, you look at someone like George Patton. He loved being out in the field. He was, a man's man. He had to be out there on the front lines, and he was doing his leading by doing. And I think that that's very important. There are too many managers out there that want to step back off the front lines and be at headquarters and make decisions. But I think it's the leaders that kind of take on more of a servant role and look out for their teams and lead by doing that really leave the biggest mark and have the biggest impact on companies.
Yeah, I think so too. And, it brings me back to like my high school football days. And, when you go out there and if you're the first one on the field, if you're the last one off the field, that's where people start to say, you know what, I want to be like that guy. He's putting in the work, he's putting in the effort, and lo and behold, it really helps congeal a team together to really see those folks that are on the front line, and they don't have to be. I mean, they could as easily sit back and say, hey, rookie, hey, freshman,
Right.
you're the guys
That's
that
right.
carry the water cooler. But when you see those more senior level people actually doing the work and in the trenches, and it goes a long way.
No, you're right. So I'm a big San Francisco 49ers fan, and
know that
someone
about you.
that really exemplifies that is Jerry Rice. So, one of the best receivers of all time, but Jerry Rice would be, like you say, one of the first people there on the field warming up, and then after the game, even if he had a fantastic game, after the game he would go back and he would be, running the stairs and things like that. Again, leading by example and showing how dedicated he was to what he was doing.
Yeah, and 49ers have a storied history. And, being a Redskins fan, there's not much recently that I got to hang my hat on. But
Hey, I don't have much to talk about either. So.
well, one thing I love the story of Sean Taylor and how, he would run to practice from his house there in Ashburn. He would run to practice in the mornings, and he would run back. He wouldn't drive a car or anything. I just thought that was the level of effort that he put into his game was just so inspiring.
Well, maybe you should give people a little bit more background on who Sean Taylor was.
That's right. I forget that not all of our audience is football. So yeah, Sean Taylor was one of the greatest safeties to ever play the game, and in 2007 he was tragically killed in his house in Miami, and ever since then that's been he was on the upward trend, and he probably would have been the greatest to ever play, but his life was cut short, and it's a story that's near and dear to all Washingtonian sports fans, and he's a legend here in the DMV. So yeah, so we talked about history, we talked about football, marketing, technology, and hopefully this gives you guys a good kind of view into Kelly and I, and who we are and why we're doing this podcast. And I'm really excited about this. Just talking with you right now, I'm getting juiced up.
I'm like taking notes on who John is.
Yeah. Well, now I think the 49ers are playing the Redskins this year, so we'll have to put some money on the line.
We'll have to go to the game.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So again, we want to be as approachable as possible to you, so you can definitely reach out to us on LinkedIn. John and I are pretty active on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And I would also, I manage the Hinge Twitter account as well. So, if you want to follow the content there, I think that certainly will help you out as you've got some questions. But there are different channels you can use to reach out to us if you need more information, and we're happy to help you out.
Absolutely, yeah, and drop us a line on email as well. You can reach me at jtyreman@hingemarketing.com, And check out our website. We've got a bunch of hingemarketing.com. We've got a bunch of blog posts and webinars and research studies and guides that you can download. And if you're looking to build your personal brand or the brand of your company, we really like to help out fellow marketers.
Yeah, John brings up a good point there. So when you look at Hinge, there are really three components to us. So we've got our consulting services. We've got another focus in our business is around the Research Institute, which John is heavily involved in. And then we also have what we call our Hinge University that provides online education and training for folks. So within Hinge University, we offer two levels of membership. There's a free membership, which you can get a lot of content, a lot of the research that John and his team do. You can at least get the executive summary of that research there. But also we've got a paid membership, monthly subscription you can get premium content from. So depending where you are in your journey, I certainly recommend you at least sign up for the free Hinge membership, university membership. Get a taste of that, see where the content is, see if you like what we're saying, and then consider becoming a pro member or paid member and really tapping into that premium content down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you all for joining us, and if you made it this far, congratulations.
Yes.
So we look forward to having you and sharing our stories with you and sharing the stories of our guests with you. So rate and review and subscribe to this podcast. It will really help us out as we're getting our feet on the ground and getting this thing launched and built. So looking forward to sharing more with you.
Thanks, John. This was really enjoyable.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Kelly. And to our audience, happy branding.